أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you for once again tuning in to this live Facebook broadcast. I just want to read something from the Holy Quran before I share this once again amazing information with you. And this comes from Surah Al-Anfal, which means the spoils of war. It's the 8th surah of the Holy Quran. And it's in the 82nd and 83rd verse. So it reads, if they intend to deceive you, God is enough for you. It was He who strengthened you with His help. And the believers, and with the believers, and brought their hearts together. Even if you had given away everything in the earth, you could not have done this, but God brought them together. God is mighty and wise. So here Allah is saying that if they intend to deceive you, well, there's no question that our sojourn in America, taking us from our ancestors, deceiving us here in America, making us think that our people back in Africa are a different people and, we have nothing to do with them, and making you think, those of you from Africa, that the black people here are not related to you and that you have nothing to do with the people here. So they intended to deceive us, and their intentions were made very clear. So Allah says, if they intend to deceive you, Allah is enough for you. It is He who strengthened you with His help and with the believers and brought their hearts together. So here it is, after 400 years of being separated from each other as a people, Allah shows and proves that no matter what they have done, He is well capable of bringing us back together. Those who believe that He's able to bring us back together. So just as a short recap, you could go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Elijah Shabazz. I have a series of videos entitled My Journey to Futajalan. One series is about the Fulani origin of the Redbone, which I deal specifically with my South Carolina branch. And then there's another branch I deal with called My Ancestor Bilali, and I give a series of videos on that particular branch. So I want to revisit both of those branches in this particular discussion here, which I intend to be very, very short. So as you know, long before I did my DNA, I had some experiences here in New York City, and that led me to know that I was from the Fulani tribe. And the fact that it happened during the holy month of Ramadan, when I first discovered my roots, and that I first discovered my roots at a masjid, that right there should tell you that I was on guidance from Allah from the very, very beginning. So before we even did our DNA, I told my great uncle my findings, and I don't know whether he believed me or not, or maybe he was just convinced by my convictions, or maybe he just wanted to go to Africa. Whatever his motivation was, on the strength of my convictions and me believing that this South Carolina branch was from the Fulani tribe, he went with me. And he was in his 80s at the time, his late 80s, and he went with me to Africa. And we went to Guinea. And we went all the way up to Futajalan, and we got as far as this particular place, prefecture called Labe. And after we made it to Labe, both of us had got sick. It's our first time being in Africa. And we turned around at that point and went back to Conakry. So Allah allowed us only to go as far as Labe, which is very, very, very significant. So recently, as I do regularly, I go through and I just do research. So I was researching my great uncle's account. He gave me access to his ancestry account. And, whoever he's related to, I'm related to because he's my grandmother's brother. And he was born in South Carolina. So I was going through and I was searching for the Fulani surnames of Barry and Jallo and Soul and Ba. And lo and behold, I came across the name So. And this particular So was from Labe. And her name is Sophia Tussaud. She's from Labe. And she's from a place called Leiluma. And her village in particular is Dara, and Poye. So this was like wow, because I've been told before that I look like Fulani, not only like Fulani, but Fulani from particularly Labe. I was told this by a couple of people. And in fact, I think I have a brother who's in the Netherlands who resembles me, and I believe he's also from Labe. So, but I look like Fulani all over Africa, but these particular, Fulani from Guinea said, yeah, you look like this particular Fulani up in Labe. So here it is that our last stop was Labe during our first journey to Futajalan, and my great uncle was there. And Allah guided us to the very place where we will find an ancestor in Futajalan. Now, the Fulbhe bloodline comes from several branches. It comes from my South Carolina branch. It comes from my Georgia branches, meaning as well as I have a North Carolina branch. So it's not just from one branch, but this particular branch that my great uncle is on happens to be from Labe. So I immediately called, a few of my, when I found this out, I notified my family from South Carolina. We have a Facebook group. I notified all of them. I notified my great uncle. He was in leaving several messages on his phone. I told several Fulani descendants here, and I called a brother that I've known for nearly 30 years. His name is Mamadou Jallo. He was in the Nation of Islam with me, and he's from Labe. So I was telling him, how I found this particular cousin in Labe, and I told him where. And at first I got it wrong. I could be a little dyslexic, so I said Leo Lama. He said, what? He said, you mean Leiluma? I said, yes, Leiluma. And unbeknownst to me, not only did we go to Labe, because we just went to Labe Sare, which is the city portion of Labe Sare, on my second trip to Futajalan, I went all the way up into a different part of Labe. So it wasn't until I spoke to Mamadou Jallo, he informed me, he said, yeah, you were in Leiluma. I said, I was? He said, yes, I seen it on YouTube. So here it is, this video that I did in Kurumangi Labe is actually in Leiluma. I had no idea that Kurumangi, the place where I shot this video, which is on my YouTube page, is in the very place where we found in Ancestor. Wow. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. If you ransom all the wealth in the earth, you could not have done that. I could not have done that. Because this was done before I did my DNA and before even my great uncle did his DNA. Allah had already guided us to the very place where the South Carolina branch of my family comes from. All praises are due to Allah. All praises are due to Allah. Only He could have done that. Only He could have done that. That's why I will never, ever, ever attempt to take credit for my research, because my research is based on the guidance of Allah. So I wanted to really share that amazing fact with you all in the audience, those of you who've been following my page. And I also, at this point, I'm going to close that part out, which deals with the Redbone part in the South Carolina branch. And I want to go to another portion of my study and research. So there are two things I want to discuss. Again, as I spoke about in my ancestor Bilali about the Fulani who came from Faz and went down into Futajalan, and particularly those Fulbhe went into Labe. And these were the scholarly class, and they brought Islam into that particular part of Futa. They were scholars and warriors. There's a great history behind the Labe region, which inshallah, we can discuss at another time. But very interesting that I was talking about Faz and those scholars that went down into Labe. And that these Fulbhe say, the ones from Labe say they are Sayyidi, meaning they have ties to the family of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So as I said before, and I know a lot of Fulbhe, they don't like to be affiliated with Arabs, and I understand, because the Arabs today are not the same as the Arabs yesterday, not all of them. However, when I went into Mecca for Hajj, alhamdulillah, last year I made Hajj, and I seen this brother, because I thought I had lost my ID, and I really wanted my ID, even whether I needed it or not. I wanted it as a souvenir. It was my Hajj ID, because when you go for Hajj, they take your passport, they hold it, and they give you a separate ID. And when you leave Mecca, they give you back your passport, but they allow you to keep your Hajj visa, your Hajj ID. So I thought I lost it, so I'm walking around, going to and fro between the Safra and Marwa, and looking for the lost and found. So finally they directed me to the lost and found office, and I went there, and I seen this brother, and I thought, like, he looked like he was a Fulani. I was like, okay, so he must be Somali, because Fulani, Somalis, we always get each other confused. So I'm talking to him, and he said, everybody thinks I'm Somali. He said, I'm from here. He was an Arab, but he looked just like the Fulbhe. And he acknowledged that we resemble each other's family, and he said, yeah, I see a lot of Somalis with this hat. Now, he said, people think he's Somali. And I said, no, this is not Somali, this is Fulani. So the Fulbhe, the tribes, the Arab tribes that resemble the old Arab tribes that originally came across North Africa still exist inside of Arabia. And it's not that we originate from Arabia in recent times, but there's no question that Fulbhe people are from the Afro-Asiatic Peninsula, which is East Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, East Africa, as well as the Arabian Peninsula, because those two areas share DNA. If you look at Arab DNA, they'll have East African DNA. If you look at East African DNA, they'll have Arab DNA because those two people have interrelated with each other for so many centuries. So there's no way Fulani could be from East Africa and not have distant cousins in the Arabian Peninsula. So again, I already spoke about the distant cousins in Iraq, and I also recently found a distant cousin from Qatar, and his name was Ubaid. Now, this particular Ubaid clan, the reason why it's significant because the Ubaid clan originates in Yemen. Ubaid was a Sahaba of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he has a big clan that's named after him. He was one of the Sahaba, and they originate in the Yemen, but then they came up to Arabia, and then they later on, when they had a dispute with the Saud family, they were pushed up into Iraq. So the fact that he has the name Ubaid, sometimes spelled Obaid, and he's in Qatar. However, the fact that I have distant cousins in Iraq, and I'm also related to Obaid, makes sense because this clan stretches from the Yemen all the way up into Iraq. So on GEDmatch, when I looked at a lot of the DNA of the Fulbhe, they had cousins among neighboring African tribes. If they were Guinean, they had cousins among the Mandinkas, a lot of them. If they were in Nigeria, and I went down the list of a lot of the Fulani in Nigeria and Cameroon and Guinea, and I'd seen these cousins. Because in GEDmatch, your DNA is public, so people can look down your list of relatives. So I've seen most Fulani, all Fulani, they would have distant cousins among neighboring tribes, African tribe. They will have, either one of their relatives married into that particular tribe, so they share DNA through a relative that married into that tribe. The same in Nigeria, they'll have a relative among the Hausa or the Yoruba. And all Fulani, like myself, we had distant cousins in North Africa, either Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, one of those places. Fulbhe people will have distant cousins when they have their DNA, and they will also have distant cousins in the Arabian Peninsula. That's why Fulani DNA is generally 3 parts, sometimes 4. Those 3 main parts are what they call, which I don't like to call, Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, and Middle East. All Fulani DNA is broken up into those 3 parts: Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, Middle East, and a lot of Fulani have a 4th part, which is European. So this is typical Fulani DNA. Now, the European portion, you may think, some colonizer slept with your great-great-great-great-grandmother. That's not what it means. What it means is that you have a 1%, they have a 1% relation to you. You're the original. They come after you. We have been all over the earth, particularly the nomadic Fulbhe, the prototype, the prototypical nomadic Fulbhe have been all over the earth. So it should be no surprise that you're going to find distant cousins in European lands, in India, as I spoke about, the different groups in India, which I'll discuss at another time, that are related to the Fulbhe people. They even found Niger-Congo cognates in Irish language, Gaelic language, and they find it in India. We've been all over the earth. So don't be surprised if you have a touch of European, but don't think it comes from them. It's because it comes from you and it was given to them. So I want to just talk about that portion and close that out. But also, I want to discuss another part of this puzzle that I was talking about in my ancestor Bilali. So just to recap on the portion I just spoke about, the Fulbhe from Faz, which they connected me to the Morocco Jews, as I spoke about in my ancestor Bilali, who were also from Faz. It doesn't mean that we're Jews. It just means that we have the DNA of the people of Faz. That's all it means, because we were this particular group of Fulbhe that came down to Labe. They were up in Faz. Fulbhe people, again, as I said in my other presentations, founded the country that is known as Morocco. But the real name, up until this day, is called Marrakesh. Marrakesh. And we, played a role in Morocco all throughout different periods of history, which I discussed on my YouTube channel, and I'm not going to discuss it now. You could just go to, again, youtube.com/Elijah Shabazz, and I discussed the history and the role that the Fulani played in Morocco throughout the ages. But I want to talk about a different part right now. So during the reconquest, after the Muslims, which composed of the Fulani, the Berbers, and the Arabs, and we all went into southern Spain and conquered it. During the Spanish Inquisition, we were pushed back into Morocco, along with the Spanish converts. Also, you have so there was this war that went on for a few centuries where not only did they want to push us out of Spain, they wanted to conquer Morocco. And the Portuguese, as well as the Spanish, had some success for a very short period of time before they were pushed back out of Morocco. And one of them was by the son of a Fulani, Al-Mansur. He's one of the most revered leaders in Morocco to this day. His mother was a Fulani, and he is revered because he saved Morocco from the invasion of particularly the Portuguese and others. However, in that push and pull, there were Marrakeshi or Moroccans who were captured. And among them were Fulbhe people. There's no question that Fulbhe people were in Morocco during this time period, 16th century, 17th century. We were there. Again, if you look at the map, this country, this division of Morocco, and I'm going to try to get as close as possible, but you might have to pull your own map. But this division here of Mauritania and Morocco did not exist before colonialism. This was all one country, going all the way from southern Spain all the way down to what is known as Mauritania today. So Fulbhe people were always in these areas. So during this push and pull, some of us were captured and brought over to this place here. See if I can find it. It's called Azores. Azores. I might not be pronouncing it correctly. Either Azores or Azores. It's a series of islands out in the Atlantic Ocean. So the captives from the war between the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the Moroccans, the captives, and they mentioned that there were captives from Guinea brought to the Azores. I'm going to say that again. If you read of the history of the captives, there were Moroccans and specifically Guineans. Specifically, those two people. And they were brought to this area of Azores. So when I was doing my research on my DNA, through Ancestry, I found distant cousins in Azores. So your DNA tells a story. So the fact that I found distant cousins here, I also found, again, the Spanish, they brought them across down this way to the Americas. So I found distant cousins all in the Caribbean, Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti. And the people very interesting that I shared the most DNA with were the Dominicans. But I also found them in distant cousins in Puerto Rico. I found them here in Mexico. Very interesting. I seen a Mexican with the Fulani shirt. Isn't that interesting? I found them, and I found distant cousins in Mexico, particularly in Jalisco. I found them, excuse me, I'm pointing at the wrong place. Mexico is here. I found them in Mexico. I found them down in Central America in Panama. I found them in Brazil. I found them, what is this place here? Going south. Let me keep going. I found them in Chile. Yes, I found them also in Chile. And I found them in, what is Colombia. In Colombia. So I found them in South America, and I'm still finding them. But then the Spanish slave trade didn't stop there. They kept going all the way down into the Philippines. And I found distant cousins in the Philippines. I found them in New Zealand. I found that I was related to this MMA fighter. He's from Polynesia. His name is Ben Moa. Much success to you, Ben Moa. He's a distant cousin of mine from, and we all share, all these places I'm talking about, we share African DNA. We share Fulani DNA in particular because they have Middle Eastern, they have North Africa, they have the same Fulani admixture, and we share that DNA with all of these places that I mentioned. New Zealand, Polynesia. Ben Moa, Ben M-O-A, he's from Polynesia. Look him up. He's a up-and-coming MMA fighter. He's doing well. I wish him the best so I could say, that's my cousin. But all the way down to the Pacific, I found cousins. So the battle started here in, Mauritania, Morocco, Senegal, Guinea. They specifically said Guinea. And, they took the captives to the Azores, which is over here. And then they started to distribute them. So the way it works in Africa, when you're from a particular village, let's say Leiluma, and let's say they capture people in Leiluma, everybody in that village is related. So when they spread your fellow villagers, which is your family, they may be your aunt, they may be your first cousin, they may be your second cousin, everybody lives in that village, your grandparents, and they spread them all to these different places. So you do your DNA hundreds of years later, you're still going to share DNA from those who were taken from that particular village. So it's in the history of Azores that Guinea and Moroccans were captive, and they were distributed all through the Western Hemisphere, all the way down to the Pacific. So these are the things that I discovered in my research, particularly on ancestry. DNA. So, and let me just say this again. Let me repeat this. I know I said this in other presentations. If you do your DNA, don't do it to get an analysis, particularly from Ancestry. Ancestry is not good in analyzing DNA. I'm going to tell you why. Because it's very deceiving. Like, for instance, if they say I'm 27% Nigerian, you may automatically think Yoruba or some other tribe. But no, Fulani are in Nigeria. So they have, when you click on Nigeria, you're going to see the first tribes they talk about is Hausa and Fulani. Then after that, they talk about Yoruba and they talk about other tribes. So Ancestry DNA acknowledges Hausa, and they acknowledge that the Fulani, who are originally from, further West Africa, are in, Nigeria. If they say you're a percentage of Cameroon, Fulani are in Cameroon. If they say you're a percentage of Mali, of course, Fulani are in Mali. So the assessment that they give you of your DNA or ancestry is, they need to do better. But the good thing, if you use their company, they're very good at showing you who you're related to. But you have to do the work. I mean, these discoveries wasn't done from Ancestry sending me an email and telling me I had cousins in these places. I had to do hours and days and weeks and months of searching. Like every day I'm on it And this is how I found Sophia too. So this is how I found these cousins in Central America, South America, the Caribbean, in the Pacific. This is from months and months and months of research and searching and pulling the needle from the haystack. So if you're not going to do the work to find it, and then once you find where your DNA is spread, then you go and you read the history, and you'll see the parallel between your DNA and history. As I just showed you, the parallel between the captives and in Azores in my history. There's no way I could have relatives in Azores and all these other places if that was not the route that my ancestors took, particularly from, and this is not my South Carolina branch I'm speaking of here, this is from my Georgia branch I'm speaking about. So I think I should stop there. I want to share with you an interview I did about 2 years ago. I've been meaning to share this with you for a while. As we talk about the Caribbean, a brother, Sheikh Azim Sharif, he's from Jamaica. His wife is Fulani from Senegal, and he learned the Fulani language, and he saw a lot of parallels between the words in the Jamaican patois and the idiosyncrasy of how the Jamaican patois or Jamaicans in general speak. And he's seen the parallel between that and the Fulbhe language. So we had a great discussion, and inshallah, I'm going to share that with you in the not too distant future. I'm just going to upload it to my YouTube page and possibly to Facebook. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for your time. May Allah continue to bless you, and all praises due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, for guiding me back to my people. Assalamu alaikum.